Hey, welcome back to my channel. In this video, I'm gonna talk about top 5
best budget Nvidia graphics cards.
Starting at number 5.
AMD Radeon RX 7600. The Radeon RX 7600 and its Navi 33 GPU have replaced the previous generation Navi 23 parts, mostly as a sideways move with a few extra features. Performance ends up just slightly faster than the RX 6650 XT, while using about 20W less power, for about $20 extra. The extras include superior AI performance, if that matters to you, in a budget GPU, AV1 encoding and decoding hardware, and DisplayPort 2.1 UHBR 13.5 outputs. Prices dropped about $20 when the RX 7600 first appeared, but have crept back up to $259 at present. The previous generation RX 6600 class GPUs have generally kept pace on pricing changes. Specs are similar as well, with the same 8GB GDDR6 and a 128-bit memory interface. Both the 6650 XT and RX 7600 also use pretty much the same 18 gigabits per second memory. The 6650 XT is clocked at 17.5 gigabits per second, so bandwidth isn't a big factor. Across our test suite of 15 games, the RX 7600 outperformed the RX 6650 XT by 6% overall at 1080p, and just 3% at 1440p Ultra. There really is almost no discernible difference in gaming performance. The RX 7600 does substantially better in AI workloads like Stable Diffusion, however, not as fast as Nvidia's 4060, but far more competitive than the RX 6650 XT when using the latest projects.
Coming at number 4.
Nvidia GeForce RTX. The RTX 4080 Super at least partially addresses one of the biggest problems with the original RTX 4080, the price. The 4080 cost $1,199 at launch, a 72% increase in generational pricing compared to the RTX 3080. Now, the 4080 Super refresh drops the price to $999, which represents a 17% drop in generational pricing compared to the overpriced RTX 3080 Ti. Of course, the 3080 Ti felt overpriced, but it nearly matched the 3090 in performance, just with half the VRAM. The 4080 Super still trails the 4090 by a sizable margin of 24% at 4K. With the current price premiums on the RTX 4090, likely caused by AI companies buying up consumer GPUs, we've also seen increased pricing on the RTX 4080 Super. Many cards cost about $200 over MSRP, though at least a couple of MSRP-priced models are available. If you're interested, check out the PNY RTX 4080 Super and Zotac 4080 Super at $999. That's $700 less than the cheapest 4090, if you're keeping track. On paper at least, the 4080 Super is certainly better than the now discontinued vanilla 4080, even if the upgrades are relatively minor. The 4080 Super increases core counts by 5%, GPU clocks by 2%, and VRM clocks by 3%, which works out to a net 3% increase in performance. Faster and less expensive would be moving in the right direction, if cards were available at MSRP.
At number 3.
Intel Arc A750. Testing the Intel Arc A750 was a bit like dealing with Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde. At times, performance looked excellent, sometimes surpassing the GeForce RTX 3060. Other times, Arc came up far short of expectations, trailing the RTX 3050. The drivers continued to improve, however, and with prices now starting at around $200, this represents an excellent value. Just note that some of the cost savings will ultimately show up in your electrical bill, as it's not as efficient as the competition. There are some compromises, like the 8GB of VRAM. The A770 doubles that to 16GB, but also costs around $100 extra. Intel's A750 also has to go up against AMD's RX 7600, which is the primary competition at this price, even if AMD's prices have recently increased. Depending on the game, performance may end up favoring one or the other. though Intel now holds the overall edge by a scant 2% at 1080p Ultra. Like Nvidia GPUs, ray tracing games tend to favor Intel, while rasterization games are more in the AMD camp. Intel was the first company to deliver hardware-accelerated AV1 encoding and decoding support, and QuickSync continues to deliver an excellent blend of encoding performance and quality. There's also CSS, basically a direct competitor to Nvidia's DLSS, except it uses Arc's matrix cores when present, and can even fall back into DP4A mode for non-Arc GPUs. But DLSS 2 still comes out on top, and it's in far more games.
Number 2 of my list.
AMD Radeon RX. With prices now heading up on many previous generation cards, AMD's RX 7900 XT has become more attractive with time. It generally beats the RTX 4070 Ti in rasterization performance, but trails by quite a bit in ray tracing games, with both cards now starting at around $699. That brings some good competition from AMD, with all the RDNA 3 architectural updates. AMD also doesn't skimp on VRAM, providing you with 20 GB. That's 67% more than the competing 4070 Ti. However, you won't get DLSS support, and FSR2 works on Nvidia as well as AMD, so it's not really an advantage, plus DLSS still looks better. Some refuse to use upscaling of any form, however, so the importance of DLSS and FSR2 can be debated. Something else to consider is that while it's possible to run AI workloads on AMD's GPUs, performance can be substantially slower. That's because the AI accelerators in RDNA 3 share the same execution pipelines as the GPU shaders, and FP16 or INT8 throughput is only double the FP32 rate. That's enough for AI inference, but it only matches a modest GPU like the RTX 3060 in pure AI number crunching. Most AI projects are also heavily invested in Nvidia's ecosystem, which makes them easier to get running.
And number 1.
Nvidia GeForce RTX. With the launch of the RTX 4060, Nvidia appears to have gone as low as it plans for this generation of desktop graphics cards based on the Ada Lovelace architecture. We're not ruling out an eventual desktop RTX 4050, but we're also skeptical such a card would warrant consideration, considering how pared down the 4060 is already. There are certainly drawbacks with this level of GPU. Nvidia opted to cut down the memory interface to just 128 bits, which in turn limits the memory capacity options. Nvidia could do a 16 GB card if it really wanted, but 8 GB is the standard configuration and we don't expect anything else. Outside of its professional GPUs, only the 4060 Ti 16 GB has the doubled VRAM option, and we weren't particularly impressed by that card. The 4060 class cards also have an X8 PCIe interface, which shouldn't matter too much, though it might reduce performance if you're on an older platform that only supports PCIe 3.0. Nvidia also cut down the number of GPU cores on the RTX 4060 compared to its RTX 3060 ancestor. The 3060 had 28 SMs, streaming multiprocessors, with 128 CUDA cores each, while the 4060 only has 24 SMs. Higher clocks make up for the deficit, but the RTX 4070 and above all have at least the same number of SMs as their predecessors.
Check out this video description for latest price and more informations. Thank you for watching this video. Please subscribe and stay tuned.